The fourth and final reflective log, there's just one question, but this one question has a broad scope with room for you to develop themes that you've explored in all your previous reflective assignments. So it is expected that there will be a significant amount of crossover with previous submissions. Don't be too concerned about covering the same topics again, although do try to demonstrate some progression. In other words, if you highlighted a problem in an earlier reflective assignment, don't just repeat the problem again in this assignment, but instead add information about possible solutions you have thought about or have already implemented since you first identified the problem. Now the question is, how do you feel you have managed yourself in this course, and how do you intend to use what you have learned? The question is expected to take about 4 hours to complete, which sounds a lot. So it's recommended that you think carefully about how you can break this question down into smaller and more manageable parts. One way of doing this would be to think back to the basic structures of reflective practice that were covered in the video introducing reflective assignments. What did you need to do, and how did that relate to your goals? Why did you do it that way, or why did people react in that way? Did your actions work? What were the consequences of those actions? And what could you do better next time? As an idea about how you could structure your answer for this, you could think of it in 4 parts. For each section, you should be aiming to spend an hour, 15 minutes of planning, 30 minutes of writing, and another 15 minutes of polishing and correcting. Part 1. Summarise what you have learned about intercultural communication, what it is, why it's important, how might it be used in the kind of jobs that you would be interested in getting. This is where you can demonstrate what you've learned during the course. And remember here that it is a reflective assignment, so we're not looking for names and dates and references, but are more interested in your own personal learning journey. What have you personally learned? What has made the most sense to you? What have you learned that you think is going to help you as you go forward in both your professional and personal life? Part 2. How did you manage your learning during this course? Were you able to keep up? Did you feel like you understood the topics? Did you complete your assignments on time? What barriers did you encounter, and what did you do when you encountered them? Now this is where you will hopefully have material from your previous reflective assignments that you can bring in. Again, try not to simply repeat things that you've already said, because this would imply that you've made no progress since then. But instead, think about how you can demonstrate how you have progressed on those issues, even if the issues do still remain problematic. Part 3. What methods, techniques or strategies did you use to help manage your time, your deadlines and progress through the course? What worked? What didn't work? What would you do differently if you had to do it again? In this section, it's important to get into the habit of thinking about your course as an employment project rather than an optional extra. Think of it as though it were a task given to you by an employer, which means that your priorities are to complete the course on time and to complete it successfully. So write as though you want to convince a potential employer that whatever happened during this course, you can be relied upon in future projects to achieve what you set out to achieve. Part 4. What practical things can you do to take advantage of what you have learned? It's important to demonstrate that there are realistic and practical outcomes from your reflective practice. After all, without an end product, it's all just talk. When thinking about practical targets, it's often useful to think about them in terms of being SMART. Specific, avoid generalizations and specify what you want to achieve, when and how. Measurable. You should be able to state what you will have to show for it. What will be the evidence that you have reached your target? Attainable. There's no point setting a target for world domination in 6 months. Your targets should be realistic. This is important not only because it means you're more likely to achieve them, but also because it means you'll get into the habit of reaching the goals you set for yourself. Relevant. This is often a tricky one because there are many things we might like to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean they are relevant to where we want to go. Timely. Give yourself clear deadlines for achieving what you need to, and don't stretch those deadlines too far. Your deadlines should be regular markers showing your progress, not just goals that seem to be forever in the far distance. Examples of things you might want to include in this section are preparing a script for interviews in which you articulate your intercultural communication skills, preparing statements that can be included on CVs or in job applications, gaining experience of working in multicultural contexts. Once again, there's a text document that you can download from the assignment itself and complete before uploading.